Hello NFL fans, welcome to NFL Picks with Dave. Today we're going to predict how Week 3 of the 2020 NFL season will play out. On Twitter I predicted the Jaguars would beat the Dolphins 28-21, but it was the Dolphins who got the win. The final score was 31-13. Okay, let's move on to Sunday's games. Our first Sunday game takes us to East Rutherford, New Jersey, where the 49ers take on the New York Giants. Last week, San Francisco defeated the Jets with a score of 31-13. Unfortunately, the 49ers had some nasty injuries during the game, including key defensive end Nick Bosa, who suffered a torn ACL, which knocked him out for the season. The Giants, meanwhile, lost to the Bears with a score of 17-13. Running back Saquon Barkley also suffered a torn ACL and will miss the rest of the season. I'm predicting the 49ers with a score of 24-14 because they're overall a stronger team despite the injuries. Our next pick takes us to Cleveland, Ohio, where the Browns host the Washington football team. Last week, the Browns defeated the Bengals with a score of 35-30, while Washington lost to the Arizona Cardinals with a score of 30-15. I'm picking the Browns with a score of 27-14. Our next game is between the Raiders and the Patriots. Last week, the Raiders opened their new stadium in style by defeating the New Orleans Saints with a score of 34-24. The Patriots, meanwhile, lost to the Seattle Seahawks with a score of 35-30. This pick is a tough one. I'm picking the Raiders in an upset with a score of 21-20. My next picks are the Bills over the Rams, 13-10, the Bears over the Falcons, 31-24, the Steelers over the Texans, 31-14, and the Vikings over the Titans, 24-21. Now let's move on to the later games. Our first late game is between the Carolina Panthers and the Chargers. The Panthers last week lost to the Buccaneers with a score of 31-17. The Chargers, meanwhile, lost to the Chiefs 23-20 in a heartbreaker. I'm picking the Chargers 27-17 because they had a much better week than Carolina did. Our next pick takes us to Lucas Oil Stadium, where the Colts host the Jets. The Colts last week earned their first victory of the season, beating the Vikings with a score of 28-11. The Jets, meanwhile, lost in a blowout to the 49ers. I'm picking the Colts in a runaway game with a score of 42-14. This pick is the lock of the week. Our next pick takes us to Seattle, Washington, where the Seahawks host the Cowboys. Seattle last week defeated the Patriots in a nail-biter, while the Cowboys performed a miracle comeback win over Atlanta with a score of 40-39. Because this game is in Seattle, I'm picking the Seahawks with a score of 31-28. Our next game is between the Detroit Lions and the Arizona Cardinals. The Lions last week got ran over by the Packers with a score of 42-21. The Cardinals, meanwhile, steamrolled over the Washington football team. I'm picking the Cardinals with a score of 38-10. Our last late afternoon game matchup takes us to Denver, Colorado, where the Broncos take on the Buccaneers. Last week, the Bucs defeated Carolina to get their first win of the season. The Broncos, meanwhile, lost to the Steelers 26-21 in a disappointing game. I'm picking the Buccaneers with a score of 24-10. Now let's move on to the last two primetime games. Our first primetime matchup is between the Packers and the Saints. The Packers last week defeated the Lions and had a field day in Lambeau Field. The Saints, meanwhile, lost in a shocker to the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm picking the Saints in a close one with a score of 30-27. And now, our last pick of the week. It's the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Both teams are currently undefeated, which means that the winner will remain unbeaten. The Chiefs last week edged the Chargers, while the Ravens killed the Texans with a score of 33-16. I'm picking the Ravens with a score of 38-35 because they've had a more convincing win last week. That does it for today's episode. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to get the latest videos and posts I do. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter at DavidNader2 and to like this channel's Facebook page. Thanks again for watching, and remember to wear a mask, practice social distancing, and to stay home when you're sick. Thanks for staying safe, and hope to see you again soon.